So the scholars have an array of different opinions, and one of the treatises that I was reviewing for this talk, he made a very good point. He said if we have a wide body of scholars who are defining the nafs as a ego or a mind, or as the soul itself sometimes, or as the heart and its kind of mystical connection with life, or as the body itself. He said, how about it's the composite of all of these? And when you look at different ayahs, you will find that sometimes the nafs that's being mentioned is a good nafs. And so that would be the soul and the heart. Sometimes the nafs is not a good thing that's being mentioned, and something that's ruining the person. And so this is where the idea of comprehensiveness, of bringing together all of the scholarly tradition, is always a helpful thing, rather than just saying, well, I love this sheikh and he says this all the time, and so that must be the correct thing, right? Because that's one person's opinion. I think whatever you're studying in the Islamic sciences, you will be a much better off believer to study from 10, 20 different scholars on a subject, rather than just to say, okay, this is the one I take and follow. So of course, when we talk about what we call ahwal al-nafs, in the phases of spiritual growth and development, there's a clear delineation. And this is where the soul is training the mind and the ego and the body as a collective to become a worshipper and a servant of God. So, inna nafsa la'ammaratun bis-su' in Surah Yusuf. So there's a debate, is this the Imra'at Aziz herself, or is this Allah jumping in there and making a declaration about the situation? Because sometimes that happens in the Quranic dialogue, is that Allah will interject into a scene or a subject matter and then make His case and then let the discussion carry on. Either way, in Arabic, when you say la ammara, so you're saying, they call this lam al-tawqid ma'al inna. So inna is a type of article in Arabic that brings emphasis, like what you're about to hear is important and it is serious. But when you add the lam, it doubles the importance, right? Now, he could have said la amira, right? La amira would mean it commands or it pushes one in the direction of evil. But here it says la ammaratun bis-su, that it is very much persistently and constantly and heavily encouraging towards evil. So here we would say that this is the ego or the selfish mind. That the ego and the selfish mind that every single person is born into, it has been touched by the influence of Iblis and all of his allies among the shayateen in this world, that when we come out into this world, we grow up soaking up and absorbing, and it goes into our mind and it becomes like this desire. And so when we look at this context, it's basically Imra'a Aziz. So at first she was seeing this young boy, Yusuf alayhi salatu wassalam, that he was in the well. She thought, okay, we'll take him in and raise him like our own or whatever, we will all keep, him as some benefit towards us. He's someone that, we could, she appreciated her husband's, desire to go out of his way to look into this situation. But then the more she looked at him, the more she thought about him, the more she felt a desire for him. And that festered and it kept going over some time until then she sought to seduce him, right? And so what's happening here is we're learning how, unchecked, we are all very much capable of evil. And that is a natural reality of being human. So Satan flows, Shaitan yajri min ibn Adam majra dam. Satan flows from the children of Adam like the blood running through the veins. Meaning what? We're all very much personally touched by evil as a human being. And so when the Quran tells us, لا تتبعوا خطوات الشيطان, right? Don't follow the footsteps of Shaitan. So the footsteps usually has more than one indication, but generally it is either his path or the stages he takes you in. So that's why many people would say, oh, I don't see there's a problem. Say, for example, I'll just talk to this person of the opposite gender and be friendly. And then you said, oh, well, why don't you just come here and say, oh, okay, I'll go, no harm, no foul. I'm not going to do anything wrong, right? Or I'll give you another example that I've heard, and unfortunately I've heard that it went the wrong way, is that you have a person who's like, I'm going to be at the college, the Muslim who keeps the keys of the drunk people. And I'm just going to go to these parties and alhamdulillah, I'm Muslim. And then over time, being around that, seeing what looks to be enjoyment and the curiosity and all, the second you put your guard down and you become content with that, those are the footsteps of the devil. And so what it's being said here is that yourself will become complacent or content, worse than that, with this evil if you do not check yourself. So then the next phase where you begin the path of spirituality is لا أقسم بيوم القيامة لا أقسم بالنفس اللوامة. So this la is a interjection. It's not negating swearing by the day of judgment. But for sure he's swearing by the day of judgment, and for sure he's swearing by the self-accounting soul. What he's saying is la, all of the ways that you're used to, all of what you say about Muhammad in this message, la to all of that. Now here's something what I have to tell you, right? Some scholars actually said it's better to say la or la uqsimu, just give a little bit of a space there so people don't get the idea that he's not swearing by this, because he is. And so here, this self-accounting soul is one that is, and if you've not engaged that much yet, then you'll find yourself struggling with it, because now you know you're wrong about a lot of things. Now you know you have many mistakes. Now you're on the lookout for flaws. Now you have to be empowering people around you to advise you as to your faults and mistakes. And if you've not gotten used to that, it's not an easy beginning, I can tell you. It took me probably a good year plus to truly engage in it when one of my sheikhs back in Islamic American University suggested it to me. And so once you begin on that path, slowly but surely it becomes natural to realize this nafs al-ammaratun bisu has been getting the best of me in more ways than one. And I want to justify to myself that I'm a good person. Everybody wants to believe that about themselves. Nobody's thinking, alhamdulillah, I'm a shaitan, so that's where we all have to know that if we're not really strongly on this path, where we're thinking, you know what, every day I have many faults and flaws and mistakes and shortcomings, I need to be conscious of this. I need to be working to repair and reform myself. And so the taking account of yourself before your account comes, there's a weak narration going back to the Prophet, but Umar al-Khattab, there's an authentic athar going back to him, where he used to say, حَاسِبُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ قَبْلَ أَن تُحَاسَبُوا, right? So, وَزَيِّنُوا لِلْعَرْضِ يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ. So he said, take account of yourself every day on a regular basis before death hits you, بَغْتَةً وَأَنْتُمْ لَا تَشْعُرُونَ, and you're not ready for that. And then now you're facing the day of judgment, and you're not ready for this. So do your own accounting, and then you'll be in good shape when you meet Allah Azza wa Jal on the day of judgment. And so the Quran tells us, that whoever is seeking worldly desires and they are looking for this place, they are going to find themselves, getting whatever they want. And if they be content with that, then it will become all natural to them. But whoever will prohibit themselves, وَمَنْ نَهَى النَّفْسَ عَنِ الْهَوَى, whoever would prevent their self from its materialistic, egotistical desire, فَإِنَّ الْجَنَّةَ هِيَ الْمَأْوَى, that's where the person is going to go, to heaven. So the spirituality is, as the Prophet ﷺ says, الْكَيِّسْ مَنْ دَانَ نَفْسَهُ وَعَمِلَ لِمَا بَعْدَ الْمَوْتِ, that a clever, astute, spiritually aware person is reflecting and taking account. The word is dana nafsahu, right? From deen, they take account of themselves. They feel themselves like they have something to fulfill. There's something that needs to be taken care of about their self, about the self. They're in conscious awareness that I have a self that I have to keep in check and remind, otherwise I will have lost. وَعَمِلَ لِمَا بَعْدَ الْمَوْتِ, then they plan to do things and commit to things that are coming after death. They're preparing their work and their priority in life as what will happen to me when I die. That's their attitude about life. And so the basically the last phase is Ya ayyuhatun nafsul mutma'inna. O content soul, soul of peace and contentment, go into the paradise that your Lord has prepared for you. So this content soul, what does this mean? This is the person that is working on ihsan and they reach to a comfort level where when death comes, it's very natural to them. Like they're not fighting it. They're not, like one brother told me that his father, he signed off on the DNR, do not resuscitate. And he was like, Astaghfirullah, my dad is only 60 some years old. Why is he doing this? And I said, what's wrong with that, brother? This do not resuscitate means if I'm in a bad situation and and I need some machines to kind of keep me going until they can find some miracle cure or whatever, don't do that. Just let me go, right? And so that's actually a more Islamic framework, right? This is like people want to have some elderly being that's very decrepit and really can't really do much and will just live in pain and suffering to just use modern technology to just keep that thing alive, right? If we didn't use all these sophisticated things, that older person will just pass their time with Allah Azza wa Jal. And so there's nothing wrong with that, and actually, it's in line with someone who is ready to meet their Lord and Maker. I mean, actually, the Prophet ﷺ was actually given this. A lot of people don't pay attention to this point. Allah said to him in the authentic hadith, I will keep you alive and give you great rule and leadership, or you can come to me. And the Prophet ﷺ said, Bar al-Rafiq al-A'la. And that's what his last words was. I would rather come up to be with you in the Most High. I want to leave this place and be with you. He was given the opportunity to give the resuscitation, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he chose not, right? So this whole attachment to the world is very much part of the devil's, it's this material, like I'm a body, right? And this is my life. No, it's not. It's his life and he's allowed you to have it and you owe it to him. Inna lillahi, we are God's property. Wa inna ilayhi raji'un, and we are returning to him. That's who we are and what we are doing. And so, وَيَهْدِي إِلَيْهِ مَنْ أَنَابَ. He guides to himself those who turn to him, right? And then he describes those people, الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَتَطْمَئِنُّ قُلُوبُهُم بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ أَلَا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَئِنُّ الْقُلُوبُ. So he's saying that those who turn to him, they are known for the remembrance of God. And it is by that remembrance that their heart is brought to contentment that, you know what, this world and all it has to offer and whatever my problems are, whatever my desires are and my enjoyments, it's nothing compared to being with him. That's the attitude of the believer. That's where we break down this nafs from the worldly perspective. And so that's where, the Prophet ﷺ had said, excellence, true excellence in spirituality, is that you worship Allah as though you see Him, as though He's right there with you in like some sort of way. Of course we know that when He says فَإِن لَمْ تَكُنْ تَرَاهُ فَإِنَّهُ يَرَاكَ, obviously God is not like a guy or a thing, right? So we're not going to see Him in that way, but we're very much conscious of His beautiful presence in so many ways all around us and within us and all of that, in His effects of knowledge and mercy and all of that. And so we're feeling that companionship to the extent that we are predicating our actions with all thought of pleasing Him and trying to be aware of His conscious account of us and that our accountability to Him. And so when we are thinking like that, then the nafs becomes the soul and the soul is dominant and it is mutma'in. It's content. It's happy and comfortable with everything. Even if the person is going through what other people would say, and that's where you look at the Anbiya. The Prophet ﷺ, he was always smiling, and yet he went through more hardships, difficulties than anyone else we've ever heard of in common human realm. So may Allah guide us to be among those who are content in our soul, in our remembrance of Allah. Inshallah, tomorrow we'll start to talk about the actions now that we've taken 5 days to dig in there and make the introduction to this thing.